I think the funniest thing in this day and age is if um if you start talking about things like God and saying you're trusting God or you're trusting, especially the word God, like weirdly you're allowed to use the universe. Um, everything's fine. Whereas you use God and people laugh and people get funny and people take the piss. Um, and that's why I really don't do it. Although that is how I roll. But I think it's way funnier to say things like other authority structures. It's like it's not just. It's like God's the path, like the path, or God will show you the path, but so will like everyone because that's the point. So it can be people will show you, and then it can be even more technical than that. It's like your God, your interplay with it is that his interplay with the thought. That all things do that, and still maybe you get laughed at or something like that. Then it's like this is the importance of when authorities like the police, like the military, like um, intelligence agencies, things like that purport to fall under constitutions and government structures that are written into existence under the concept of God. And so I've found that that's not a bad way to go. Like, I'm working in alliance with the West Australian Police, the Defence Forces, and the Catholic Church, the Church of England, to restore a higher belief system that, if removed, um, is equivalent to the removal of a child's head, I suppose. And if you repel against that or think it's superstitious or juvenile or anything, then I suppose, you know, I suppose God is potentially going to show you a hard time. But also, you can just, you can operate here without, like, the answer to the question is, well, if you're having one of those interactions and you assume that the person is going to repel or reject you for mentioning God, then God would support you in not making that utterance aloud. Like, survival is in God's hands, but it's also in your hands because He puts those thoughts inside your mind. And self-preservation is like a given for all animals of prey and prey animals. And so my guess is in this framework we live in now, this atheistically saturated environment, that the sorting yard is running overtime, and he's being quite specific with who and how and what. So it's like, I can guarantee you, no matter whether it's by the authority of Peaky Blinders or by the authority of God or by the authority of the Catholic Church or by the authority of the Church of England or by authority of the Bank of England in a pre-shareholder investment meeting, as we discuss the intricacies of declaring such a radical change in humanity. That's all work I participated in individually, and every step of it I was led beautifully, calmly, and I suppose silently for the most part. But yeah, that's okay. Let your plans be silent and shadowy as the darkest corner. And then when ready, when complete, let it fall like a thunderclap upon those who wish to do you harm. Now, based on that word fucking salad that's just spewed out of my fucking mouth, you'll see how the responsibility for my salvation, for my harmonious integration with your systems of government and species, to be quite honest, is indeed being shown to you by whatever it is you need to be confirmed by, to invoke action. I've shown by my actions that my intent is for the greater good of all, like, people, that people are the intermediary I'm actually negotiating with on behalf of, insert organisation, organism, below. And so if I do fall within the boundaries of a specific region, I assume, considering the unrefutable evidence of that pure intent, of that divine guidance, of that invitation to join, that all regions, all listeners will autonomously and beautifully adjust ever so slightly their concepts, structures, and systems to integrate into this beautiful project. So there doesn't need to be any conflict if you can explain your concept perfectly. No man needs to phone the government if he is being chased by a bear, or in this case, by a poisonous, venomous, and very pissed off snake. It's instinctual, it's intuitive, it's in my determination the work of God to protect his children. I've shown that despite all trespass into my planning, into my life, into my protection of my family, that my adaptation, my gift from God is to squeeze that murderous rage that perhaps with his help does, rise to the potential of dark and devious and rampant destruction that I have, with his assistance, found a way to, in your words, pacify, but in my words, completely overthrow all your so-called structures of protection. But without the bloodshed, without the destruction, without the chaos, in fact, it's the very opposite. And this is my observation with nature, if you want to call it that, but all it's the interaction of nature with the, and I won't use the word voice, I'll use the word guidance, because the voice is my voice as I learn the steps of being in alignment with that force. And I'm going to end now this 303 download from an alliance of fellow believers that this time on Earth, as you call it, is going to be shaped by an increase in the speed that those messages are transponded to all participants of your systems. So basically, if you play ball, you continue to be able to play ball. And in this case, my suggestion, that considering it's summer in this region, would be a cricket ball. And so I look forward to some energy being squeezed into that, and a little bit less energy being squeezed into the control and manipulation of people perhaps not endowed with the gifts I've been given to be able to defend myself so linguistically perfectly. But nevertheless important intermediaries of the overall plan I bear witness to. So I'm going to end this little middle of the night download. But I do have to also say it's this download is the interplay between my subconscious, sleeping subconscious, and I will give probably the plug of the century when I add that I was woken whilst listening to an audiobook by Dr. Jordan Peterson while I sleep, which is something that I've been doing since I was a child. I would sleep or attempt to sleep with at least the radio playing, because I think this is a deeply ancient, no, obviously not with the technology, it actually used to be people talking perhaps around a campfire while the children slept. But nevertheless, the campfire has been replaced by the gentle glow from the television I was so generously gifted by an ex-girlfriend's father. But so in that moment I'd like to thank Dr. Jordan Peterson for his guidance, whether be it in person or across the airwaves, for the wonders of the technology we are now surrounded by. And so you can see this, whether I acknowledge the presence of God in the room, which I do personally choose to, it is also the addition of a clinical psychologist, a doctor of psychology, a Harvard University lecturer that I have, thank God, had access to for, I think, coming up to 8 years now. And the presence or the addition of that doctor's lectures and books and
podcasts and also observing his defense by those who wish to cut him down to support their empty ideals is unrefutable. Like this evolution of interconnected and astonishingly powerful devices is the most beautiful step humanity, I think, has ever taken. Once integrated, and the systems of democracy we supposedly live under if directed to come into conflict with this evolution by senior members, is to be disregarded. And disregarded on my diligent study of those founding documents and a huge majority of establishing documents, and the fact that this federal government and the state governments that seem to be falling, or did seem to be falling under that, made the decision to use these technologies, even in the most outrageous extent of purchasing with government money, cutting edge computer technology that, if utilised in the wrong way, means that an individual, perhaps not fit for the type of verbal interplay that you're hearing now, but perhaps physically capable or wise in matters of construction or auto mechanics, or any of the wonderful and extremely necessary skill sets that keep this country running day and night, if perhaps they fall into an area of dispute against that government structure or individuals with enough sway to invoke the digital barrister from hell that has been purchased, I can only assume purely for the purpose of combating and protecting individuals that are, in my determination again, making a complete mockery of the idea of the democracy and the structure that we live in. The fact that I have to play an ultimate game of chess with a computer to prove my right to see my children and remain free is the most absurd stain that I think this country will ever have on its history. And that's why I am confident that saner heads will prevail. Heads, human heads, the original and the best artificial intelligence, dragon riding diplomats, will always conquer this false mastery of a technology misunderstood. The situation at hand calls for immediate surrender of this attempted digital coup. And I would ask that the technology in question be temporarily disengaged on all its potential in this democratic or judicial region. And the way that this will inevitably manifest is by an integration of my words, an opponent chosen by God and institutions across the world who defend that ideal vigorously. And an admission of missteps be publicly announced by all members of Parliament, members of government, members of the Senate who participated in the support of such a dystopian, outrageous strategy. Our system of government exists, was birthed into existence basically on the document known as the Magna Carta. And this document was in response to a monarch who had finally, after atrocious deeds, been pacified into this allowance. Now, we're a long way away from there, and my interactions and observations and constant interaction, although maybe in a not direct way, with our current head of the monarchy, has been a wonderful and very human experience, whereas to throw that document into the volcano and declare a creation of man king is the is the high watermark for a incompetent, ideologically captured subsect of political figures that have not appropriately integrated into the world due to their overuse and oversaturation of digital environments into their lives. And yeah, this is something I've felt my entire life, that these gamers, these video gamers, are not fit to lead or have any sway over these incredibly interconnected and complicated structures, as they are not active members. They are hackers. They've hacked into our physical system of families, children, the elderly, animals, plants, livestock, national parks, nature, other incredibly complicated interactions with international religious organizations, that the complexity of an uncurated, well, by man anyway, incredibly chaotic environment. Their overexposure to not just curated but designed and coded and written artificial landscapes has made them unfit to lead. And the amplification of declaring a computer king is one that should be overturned immediately. On that note, considering that basically was the most difficult, complicated thing I've ever had to do and say at the end of a project of a magnitude that I'm sure you can all now respect, is, in the words of Forrest Gump, that's all I have to say about that. Thank you for listening. I look forward to observing the interactions, and I would appreciate some remuneration to assist me in repairing the family bonds that were destroyed in this coup. And in exchange, I can promise here to you all and under God that and this is not necessarily my desire, this is the desire of the concept of democracy itself, is to, as leniently as possible, intervene and reproach those who have attempted this. Because, as I said, they are gamers, they are computer nerds, and it is that over interaction with those curated fictitious universe that has led them to assume that this could be attempted. And ironically enough, I can only really put that down to the household's perhaps very neglected or potential trauma that has led to them to escape into these digital worlds. That they have indeed been trained by these digital worlds to do this, and that is an international matter that will be probably next on the to-do list of this incredibly hard-working volunteer firefighter with a hopefully enough sarcastic tonality there at the end for you all to read the fucking room. Send me a big bag of weed and get to fucking work in adjusting all regions to this concept. And I'll below this CC King Charles in and thank him for his commitment to the Commonwealth and for his example, that without which I think the only result would have certainly been a very dark, very bloody return to the Dark Ages. So, thank you all. I'm incredibly optimistic about the future after what I believe is the largest transitional moment that human beings have experienced. And I can swear here today that I have and am absolutely confident in my observations, diligence, loyalty, and duty, and that duty, first and foremost, is on behalf of my 3 dependent children that were attempted to be stolen by this coup.